Hello and welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top local, national, and world stories from a moral, ethical, and religious point of view. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of religious leaders. Father Joe Graffis, Archdiocese of Louisville, Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, St. Peter's United Church of Christ, Dr. John Slider, retired pastor, Free Methodist Church, and Rabbi Emerita Gaylia R. Rooks, the Temple. The criminal case ends for Jamey Noel, the former Clark County, Indiana sheriff, sentenced to 15 years of prison, 3 of those years suspended. It's our first story this week on Moral Side of the News.
I confess to Almighty God, to you, my brothers and sisters, that I have sinned through my own thoughts and my words, what I've done and what I've failed to do.
Before Jamey Noel went behind bars, he finally said the words so many wanted to hear.
I'm sorry, and I hope I didn't leave anybody or anything out.
While many thought Judge Medlock might throw out the plea deal, he went with the recommendation from his own probation officer to accept it.
Everybody wants you to do a lifetime in prison, and maybe that's what you deserve. But the law will not allow me to do that.
The victim impact statements took 3 hours, and there were many different faces. One very familiar to Noel.
I'm speaking on behalf of Leon's kids.
Hope Noel, the ex-wife of Leon Noel, Jamey's brother who died in 2018. Jamey was accused of stealing from his nieces and nephews' inheritance. Hope didn't hold back.
That grandma, your mom, grandpa, your dad, and Leon would be very disappointed in you. Karma is coming for you, and I hope you realize how bad this upsets me. Have fun in prison because you deserve it. Yeah, that's what I want to see right there, is you crying. Finally, some reaction.
Also, Susanna Worrell, whose brother-in-law was Red Worrell, a Clarksville town councilman who died after a medical event on Election Day last year. He was transported by New Chapel EMS.
Could Red still be alive today if the ambulance had arrived faster? Possibly.
Still, Medlock chose to accept the deal, and state prosecutors want the area to move forward.
But at least in my eyes, the grip that Jamey Noel had on this community is over.
So he's expected to serve between 9 and 12 years of that 15-year sentence. He's ordered to pay $3.1 million in restitution, and the judge fined him $270,000, quoting, "Since you worship at the altar of money." Your thoughts on the conclusion of the Jamey Noel criminal case?
It's sad all the way around. It's obvious. It's not only, well, I'll say it's obvious. It's torn him up. It looks as if he's contrite, whatever value we want to give to that. But it's destroyed his family. Well, maybe not destroyed, but certainly damaged his family and damaged the community. It's a sad development.
I think, it was amazing to see how he could get away with all of this, that there weren't checks and balances somewhere. Of course, we see a lot of this happen in a lot of other instances right now. And I guess one of the things that struck me is that, there's so much in our society that, the life of the rich and the wealthy, I want all of that. And which is fleeting so quickly. And but how he did all of this kind of stuff, and the many people, obviously it hurts the fire departments, and Lord knows we want to lift up our fire departments because of the crusade. And I know some of the guys that are over there have really been devastated by what he's done and what he's taken from them as well as the community. But it's so sad that, we can go down this path, even though we might be people of faith, as he's trying to say he is now, but he should have been listening to the gospel long before then, and God's word.
Yeah. I think what the judge said really struck me, since you worship at the altar of money. And I'm not saying that's always been true. I guess there are those who covet that kind of wealth, but I think that we just came through the High Holy Days, and we talk about one of the communal prayers of repentance is for worshiping other gods. And a lot of people just skip over that. Well, we're not pagans anymore, and we don't. But to me, it seems that people are more and more worshiping at the altar of money, of power, of fame, and that all that puts them above the law of the land, the law of loving your neighbor and caring and being righteous and kind, but also the law of God.
One of the things that I think about is that we often preach to our congregations the consequences of our actions, the actions of others, and there are definitely consequences in this case, not only for him and his family, but for those in the community, and these are actions that many of these people will never overcome as a result of it. And so I don't know that I think that the outcome is just. I can't say that because I don't know the legality of the sentencing, but it does not, in my mind, seem to be enough for the harm that he has caused.
Gail, you talked about false idols, and in our tradition as well, and people kind of blow that all off. Well, we don't worship idols like they used to.
Oh, really?
Well, and I just think there's so many of those. Whether it's sports becomes everything, or entertainment becomes everything, or obviously money, or prestige, or honor, whatever that means. I mean, I think we do have lots of false idols. We just don't name them sometimes, and so preaching against those idols is not always accepted. Even well, that's not for me. That's for the goody two shoes and all that kind of stuff.
And no matter how much contrition and no matter how much forgiveness is offered, there's still the consequences. People, if I could, I'll sound judgmental. I don't mean to in this situation, but it appears that the former sheriff was guilty on all accounts. He confessed to them, but sin has an impact. No matter how we try to, and we can come back and heal relationships, but there's a lot of trust broken here with the community, within the family, for law enforcement. I was trying to think if this position as sheriff, is it Clark County? Is it? I think it's elected, is it not?
Yes.
And I was trying to think, well, would it have been better if he appointed by a political overseer? But there's difficulties there. So I don't know a good answer or a good way to fix this for the future.
I just can't fathom. I mean, I can't pretend to understand the psychology of the criminal mind. And I've been aware of this lacking in myself for a long time. I can't, it's like I can't, not that that's true in this case, but I can't understand how one human being could kill another human being, could murder another human being, not in self-defense, not in, and in this case, I remember when I first heard about it, and how could he steal from the public like that, and especially in his position, and law enforcement and fire protection and emergency services, and it staggers my imagination to try to get a handle on that. But that he also did it, within his own family.
Right.
Stealing the inheritance of the grandchildren of the. I guess I'm expecting there to be some line of morals that my own nieces and nephews or what I just.
Well,
I
and
can't
don't you
pretend
think
to
though
understand.
it's almost a step by step. It's not it's not a switch on, switch off. It's a
I don't know.
It's a dimmer switch.
I'm not sure that's
well, I'm
true.
comfortable, but this was okay. There were no consequences here. I'll go the next step.
Just how much can you get away with?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it
well,
also,
yeah. And not only how much can you get away with, but, well, this doesn't feel really bad, so maybe the next step will. I'm just thinking.
I'm not sure if that doesn't feel bad. I'm not sure what does.
Yeah.
and it affected his wife
Oh, yeah.
and his daughter, who did some of the similar types
Right.
of things.
Yep.
But I guess to the punishment part, Pope Francis wrote a book, The Name of God is Mercy. And I do definitely believe that, God's always showing mercy. Now, that doesn't mean getting away with, and there shouldn't be consequences. I agree solely with that, but,
There's a difference between love and mercy and justice.
Right.
In Judaism, mercy and justice, well, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but
Right.
it's a balance.
Right. But, however many years, I mean, if he's got 15 years or 12 years, that's still a long time in prison.
And to be fair, his wife and daughter have not had their trials yet,
They have not,
my
and
understanding. So
Are they
Possible
able
plea
to
deal coming with
combine
that.
them? Were
No,
they able
I
to
think they were
combine them or
not
not?
combined.
And they are
His
going to,
last
I think
word.
they're working through a plea process right now, is the latest on that.
And
I had-
each will be on a different
Very
trial.
briefly, I had a pastor friend, whose daughter was profoundly mentally handicapped. And he step by step got into embezzling church funds
Oh, boy.
to help cover some things, and ended up in prison for a little bit. So I don't want to give anybody a pass on these things. They have to deal with the consequences. To be a functioning society, we need the consequences, that we need justice. But there's oftentimes some background to everything. I don't know what the background is here. It just seems like it's
Well, and it
greed.
doesn't sound like it was, I needed this,
To
and
cover
so I
that,
went
yeah.
that far.
Yeah.
I'm not excusing
No,
that
no.
behavior for someone
More
who does.
greed than anything else.
But you can understand a parent who has a special needs child who is, I'm not saying it's right, but who's
pushed to the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not even seeing that here.
No. I wasn't equating
Right,
the two.
I'm
I'm just trying to think through. Not that I'm above these
Amen.
things, but
Amen.
Yep.
why?
Thanks, great conversation. It wrapped up very quickly because he pled guilty, but they expected the trial to go on for months. So it came to an abrupt ending, and his daughters and his daughter and his wife is still out there to be determined. So thanks for the great conversation. We turn now. Thanks for watching and listening on Moral Side of the News on iHeartRadio and WHS TV. We turn now to the massive gift card scam uncovered this week, and a warning as we head into the holiday shopping season.
Gift cards upon gift cards, close to 3,000 of them confiscated by St. Matthew's police before they were headed to the shelves. Investigators say they were valued at over $1 million. 4 men are now facing charges accused of unsealing the cards, changing their PIN numbers, and resealing them. Then, when money is loaded, that money's stolen, leaving a zero balance for an unknowing customer.
We had 2 in that same day, but third or fourth time this has happened in St. Matthews.
The most recent incident came from the St. Matthew's Kroger, making customers wonder which of those gift cards on the shelves have been tampered with and which ones have not.
I'm really disappointed that people would do that. People looking to get something for free, but then they're cheating you, they're cheating us, they're cheating everybody who gets a fake card.
The 4 recent suspects were apprehended by police because of Kroger's loss prevention. They contacted the department after surveillance footage showed the men placing the cards on the racks.
Loss prevention here has done a very diligent job of looking at individuals who might be doing this, and they've already had it happen in the past, so they know what to look for.
These 3 to 4 cases in St. Matthews have all happened this year. The department has involved Homeland Security in the investigation.
It seems to be very far-reaching. These individuals, for the most part, appear to be coming from the California area. We have some information where they've actually traveled down through the Northeast, going to different cities and more than likely doing the same thing.
Yeah, check for signs of tampering.
You can protect yourself from these scams if you know what to look for.
Consumers need to be very diligent in looking at these to make sure they're not altered.
An extra step to keep in mind when out shopping for the holidays.
So a public service to everyone out there as you're buying gift cards for the holidays. But panel, your thoughts on this?
I was trying. I've read the package you gave us several times. Looked at the video. I'm still puzzled as to the mechanics of how things. But I'm not going to worry. That's a generational thing. I don't think I'm ever going to figure out how to do that scam. So everybody's safe
from
that
John.
gets a gift card from me. And by the way, if the folks have watched this program over the years, Gaylia and I always disagree on things. So I want to come down as 100% against gift card scams, and I'll let you take the other position. But I don't mean to make light of it. Again, this is a question of trust. We need to have trust to function as a society. I'm puzzled as to why Homeland Security was involved, unless there's some illegal immigration situation going on.
I read that they were not American.
Yeah, I saw some names, and I just presumed that was
Chinese
possibly,
nationals,
possibly an
So I
issue.
assume that's
And
where
it's
it
a
came
good way to attack another vulnerability that we have around the holidays. I'm just saddened, but I'm glad good law enforcement here, caught the perpetrators, and I hope that sends a signal.
To me, what's interesting is that in a lot of ways, this is just the same thing that we were talking about in the last segment. This is such greed. They don't care who they're hurting. I mean, whether it's a wealthy person who's just, buying a card as a stocking stuffer and or whatever, or, I mean, you think about some families, like $100 gift card, an Apple gift card or something, that could be a huge, huge amount that they've really, struggled to set aside the nickels and dimes until it grows so that I can do this. And, regardless of whether the person is of great wealth, moderate wealth, or, really penny pinching, to make ends meet, it's just so clearly harming other people. And how can you not think about that? I know I sound so naive. I just don't understand how people could just randomly hurt others in that way.
I was kind of touched because that's my Kroger's that I go to all the time.
Well, I've been there a lot.
So it's Joe. We have to be careful
and I've
not
walked
to get
right
a
by
gift card.
those stands there, and I've always been a little bit worried about that. I mean, that somebody could fool with it. I don't understand how they've done this.
Yeah.
It wasn't
We're
clear to
getting
me.
old, Joe.
Right. But once they get that number, then once you put it in, then they can take all your money. I mean, so often people use a lot of those cards sometimes to give to nonprofit organizations for Christmas gifts for families and food and all those kind of things, like Visa cards or something like that.
In the wake of the hurricanes,
right?
A lot of people are, here's a $100 Target card, and you can buy groceries or toilet paper and paper towels and whatever you need, clothes.
I was by the Target, and I went by there kind of after this came out. It was like, don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't hit Target as well. Excuse me.
Well, but they are Target cards.
Right.
I mean,
but they have other ones too.
They were all,
I mean, I just don't understand. So it's not just you all. I don't understand the mechanics of all
Even
of
you
this.
young people can't.
Yeah, but I think the for wisdom for us is if we are purchasing cards, let's think about the process that we need to follow. You purchase the card, you go online because you can do that to verify. You keep your receipt. You do all of those things. And if your money disappears, because I think that happens occasionally sometimes, you'll buy a card and perhaps they didn't run it right, and you get home and you find that it's zero, and it's like, I know I paid for it, so why isn't it? And so if you have your receipt and you have followed all the procedures that you need to verify it, then that helps to prevent you from losing money. So I think we have to go back to the basics and be smart about these mechanisms that we're using to give gifts and realize that scams happen. I mean, just like everything else, we know that those things happen, and so, but we just assume that certain things are off limits. Well, we're finding out now that's not the case. This is not off limits, and we have to be proactive in making sure that we are protected in all instances.
And that's going to hurt the retailers as well, because people probably aren't going to be as comfortable buying gift cards as they have been in the past. So, you know, whether it's Kroger or Target or whatever, if they're not making extra money from the gift cards, then that raises all their other prices. I mean, it just hurts all of us.
I think in both cases, it tells us about moral values and how, while we're trying to teach those, that people are not listening to that. And I don't know who's responsible, but all of us need to be much more to lift up the moral values of our whole country, and of course around the world as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you for the segue to the Around the World story. We'll move now to topic number 3, and the war in Ukraine, and reports this week that 3,000 North Korean soldiers are now inside Russia, training with possible deployment to join the Russians against Ukraine on the front lines.
Tonight, the White House confirming that some 3,000 North Korean soldiers are inside Russia for a possible combat deployment to Ukraine, a highly concerning move the U.S. calls a sign of desperation and weakness. This video circulating online appears to show the North Koreans at a Russian training site.
If their intention is to participate in this war on Russia's behalf, that is a very, very serious issue.
The White House revealing today that it was early to mid-October when the North Korean soldiers traveled by ship from Wonsan, North Korea to Vladivostok, Russia, and then spread to multiple Russian military sites. Vladimir Putin has suffered extraordinary battlefield losses. More than 500,000 soldiers killed or wounded in the war with Ukraine.
That he has to farm out the fighting to a foreign country, I think speaks volumes about how much his military is suffering and how uncertain he believes, how untenable he believes his situation is.
So a significant escalation in the development over there with Ukraine and Russia, with North Korea entering the mix now. What do we make of these developments?
This seems unusual to us. Of course, Joe, you and I will remember 2-3 centuries ago with, in the American Revolution. I mean, there were mercenaries brought in to help fight with the British. So it's not, it's historically, we have examples of it. It is concerning. It harkens back to the connection between North Korea and the Soviet Union during the 1950s, the Korean War. I don't blame Ukraine for being concerned. That's a fresh bunch of probably well-trained already North Koreans. They're not going to be messing around, and they're probably not going to be seeking to desert. Because if they leave their unit, their families back in North Korea will probably have some problems. So they're going to be if they're deployed into Ukraine, they're going to be a unit to be concerned about for the Ukrainians.
That's one of my concerns. Is obviously Russia has had a very untrained army and on all that kind of thing, and now having a more professional army is not going to help Ukraine at all. But I think the more serious issue is this kind of axis, we used to call it axis of evil, you know, where it's China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, and all these coalescing together. And obviously, we're not even going to get into the politics of the elections right now, but all the intelligence stuff that's going on here, and we saw that with our last 2 stories here. That's really very challenging for our world scene. Do we have somebody to now, this new axis of evil that affects the whole world?
Right. And just totally lost my train of thought.
Oh.
But one thing I do want to say is that you said it's such a well-trained Army. It's a very disciplined Army,
yes,
and it's well-trained in certain areas,
Right.
but not in technology and the use of drones and things that are very commonly used in modern warfare. And hopefully that will help. But the idea of, you know, it's the othering and the like in World War II, the Allies and the Axis. Russia was on our side in those days, but that's another story. I just worry about World War III. We're running out of time. That's what I'm worried about.
You want to be the smart
I remember what
one?
you said. You said that you worry about Ukraine. But
Oh, yeah.
but it trickles down to America too, because
Oh yeah,
we're,
sure,
you know,
sure.
we're.
What has Russia promised to North
Right.
Korea? And,
Right,
and, yeah,
exactly.
And are we going to be sending troops?
Yeah. My concern is that we are heading toward World War III, obviously, and we have a lot of bad actors that are willing to go down that road. And I think it just behooves us more as the United States to be more, I think, committed to, unfortunately, committed to the support of Ukraine, so that we can possibly squash this war before it gets to a greater capacity. I don't know that it's possible.
Might be a little late
Well,
for that.
and I think the other thing is when we talk about World War II, we're talking about 80 years ago.
Yeah.
That kind of war compared to today.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Pope Francis has often said we're already in a world war
Right.
with the whole cyber stuff
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
going on. That's a very subtle war. And so often our wars today seem to be much more subtle drones, all the new equipment, and of course nuclear weapons.
Asymmetrical.
That's the big fear, the nuclear war.
Nuclear war, yeah.
I don't want to end it on this comment, but Gaylia and Jamesetta, you all sound like neocons here. That didn't get a comment. Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Well, I think we're all fearful about
yes, we're
any
certainly
kind of
fearful about this spreading.
war in any way, shape, or form, and
Yeah.
how
And
to
the
avoid it.
relationship, well, I'm not going to get into that.
We have a minute left.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot. There's China, Taiwan. There's
Oh,
Israel,
certainly,
and,
yeah.
and Hamas, and
Yeah.
Hezbollah, and Iran. This is just one
And a lot of
element
them are
it.
proxy wars now, which
Sure.
is like, I don't know.
Well, and we're not going to talk about the Near East right now with what's going on in Israel, Hezbollah, Iran there. I mean, and that's like a matchstick
It's in the
box.
to
Oh, yeah.
a lot of other things. And,
So we'll leave it on that. Do you want to final
No,
word?
I was going to try to just say that I hope everyone has a happy Halloween and safe
Safe Halloween,
trick-or-treating,
yeah.
and when we cherish our children, and I just wanted to end on a happier note.
And we're going to say a shout out to Gavin Ford, our 16-year-old DeSales High School
Right.
junior and Crusade family member, who is home with his new heart this week.
Good. Yay.
Way to go, Gavin. We love you.
you didn't get